The best loot in Minecraft is found at Bastion Remnants. Here's everything you need to know about how to find and raid them. Now, how do you actually find Bastion Remnants? The first thing you can do is literally just explore around the Nether and hope you get lucky and find one. But something you can do if you want is go on a website called chunkbase.com, go to the seed map, type in your seed, whatever it is, then select your version, whatever version that is. You can even select Bedrock Edition versions if you'd like down there. Then change your dimension from the overworld to the Nether, make sure that Bastion Remnants here are enabled, and you can see them right here. That does not show you where 00 in the Nether is, so if I were you, I would just basically double click on here, make a little dot there, and you can kind of see, oh, the closest one is right here, or maybe it's right here, and you can simply navigate to those coordinates there of the X and the Z. Of course the Y will be whatever, maybe 70 or 80, it depends, but overall it's not going to matter too much what the Y is, and you can go over there and raid all these different Bastion Remnants. There's only about 5,000 by 4,000 here, and what you might notice is that the structures in the Nether are incredibly dense. There's a huge amount of structures in the Nether, and so finding yourself, let's say, a Bastion Remnant, I mean even a ruined portal or a Nether fortress if you want, is incredibly easy through Chunk Base here, but you don't really need it as they are so common. You can basically just explore and find one naturally. Now, because the Bastion has a lot of basalt and blackstone in it, it bears a striking resemblance to the Basalt Deltas biome. And because of that, you will never find a Bastion in the Basalt Deltas. They simply do not generate there, so they would look too similar and blend into this biome. But they are found in every other biome in the entire Nether. Now, there's not just one type of Bastion in Minecraft, there's actually 4 distinct types. There is the bridge, the Hoglin stables, the housing unit, and the treasure room. And it's very important to know the differences between each one of these structures, so you will know not only how to properly loot it, but also what loot can be found in it. We are going to start off with the bridge. You can tell this is the bridge because it actually has the face of a piglin on it. You can kind of see that here. This is like the nose of the piglin. These are sort of like the eyes right here and over here. You can see that there. And this is like the mouth of the piglin with some teeth there and sort of like its tongue or something sticking out. So if you kind of look at it like this, you can sort of see there's the nose, the teeth, and the tongue there. Really cool because I've seen these before and I didn't really ever notice it till I saw it here. But you can see that is exactly what it looks like. Now, in this actual bastion, there are some benefits to it. There is this very easy to grab chunk of gold here. It generally has 16 pieces, but it can have a little bit of a different amount depending on the one. Also, believe it or not, this is the smallest bastion that generates in the game. And just looking at it a little bit more here, not only does the front look like the face of a piglin, this is even sort of like the body of the piglin. There's one arm there and one arm there. If we look at it a bit further away, you can almost see there's like the face, there's like a shoulder there and a shoulder there. If we go to the back here, you can kind of see even the arms here stick out a little bit there and there. It doesn't look exactly the same on the back there, but it is cool. And there are 2 types of chests here. So there are some single and double chests here of the standard type. There's different chests for each bastion, and each bastion has some different unique loot to it, except for one type. Now in this one, we have here a standard chest. There can be some very good loot in here, including ancient debris. And if you want to see this bastion's chest that is specific to it, simply go through one of the piglin's nostrils like this, then go over here, and you'll see that there is a chest that generates right over here. It might be on the other side as well. And inside of it, you have a guaranteed lodestone. And this is 100% guarantee. There is a lodestone in every single one of the chests of this type. You won't find one of these in every chest in the structure here, but that's because they're not actually the bridge type chest. But of this type chest, there is always that lodestone, which is actually very good loot considering the fact that a lodestone needs a netherite ingot to craft. And as well as that, we also have these kind of multiple layers of bridges here with lava down here. It's like the lower entrance and the higher up entrance there. And some chests hidden throughout the underneath passages here as well. Overall, in terms of the loot at the Bridge Bastion, I would give it the 2nd best rating. So I would say of all the bastions in the game, it's probably the 2nd best in terms of loot. The Hoglin Stables is a very large bastion, but the chest that is specific to this bastion's loot isn't very good. So there are some different types of chests throughout here, but let's look at what's the benefits of this bastion. Now, first of all, there are many more Hoglins in this bastion than there are in the normal one. I mean, you would assume it is because it's called the Hoglin Stables. It basically consists of this lower structure down here that contains lots of Hoglins in these stables right here. And there's this very large section of the bastion right over here that looks much more fortified and a lot less ruined, that contains some very good loot chests chests up here. In fact, a very large amount. You can see there are 3 there and 3 there. Again, the overall loot you're going to get depends, but just in terms of the specific chest here, it's not actually that good. If we go down to one of the chests down here in the actual unique part of this bastion here, you can see there is some ancient debris here, but generally what you're going to get a lot of is the crimson nylium, the pork chops. You might get some of the fungus here because that's the breeding food of the hoglin. Here's another example of the bastion specific chest. You notice there's some crimson forest items here, and also some hoglin related items, as you would assume. Overall, this is a pretty good bastion to get loot from, and there is a large amount of hoglins here, so you'll want to watch out for those, as well as having this very large amount of loot here in these 6 chests. While the loot here can't be completely insane, you can rarely find yourself some ancient debris or scraps of netherite in here. Next we have the housing units. Now the housing units are a very odd type of bastion. I guess they're supposed to be housing for the piglins. I'm not sure if this really looks like housing to me, but it is interesting because they're not actually called bastions, they're called Bastion Remnants, which I assume would talk about the fact that these were once something better, and they slowly were destroyed into only a remnant of their former selves. Anyway, there's something very good you get here, which is the nether wart. Now the nether wart generates right here in the middle of the housing units, maybe like a community farm or something, and this is the only place in the entire game to get nether wart outside of the nether fortress. So if you find one of these, this could be your source of nether wart, although it doesn't really matter considering the fact that you also need blaze rods to brew, but still nice to have it here. Although if you are in Bedrock Edition, nether wart can also rarely generate in other parts of the nether. Now there is no chest specific to this bastion, although overall it's still a very good bastion to raid. There's also a lot of chests over here. You can see there's quite a bit of loot here. These are the same kind of default chests. You have a chance of pig step, like this one right here. There's also some chances of ancient debris, never a full netherite ingot, but there's also the snout banner pattern, and both the snout banner pattern and the pig step disc are some of the rarest items in the entire game. So that's a really good way of getting them is right here. In fact, it's the only way of getting them is in the bastions. There's also a couple pieces of exposed gold here, which is quite nice. And you might find some extra piglins in these housing units with some chests in them as well here and there. And in the chest there's generally default loot as well, just like this, but that can include enchanted diamond pickaxes. And last we have certainly the best bastion in terms of loot, which is the treasure room bastion. It sort of consists of 3 different parts. This large cube here, then there is this area here with a bridge over these lava pools here. Looks like they're farming the lava or something. And over here there's this tower. Now this tower does contain some loot and some default chests here, which is the default loot draw for a bastion. You can see there can be some very good stuff here still, and it's the same stuff we'd find in the default chests of any other bastion. But the real benefit of this bastion is if we go into it right here, you can see there's this very large room here. Certainly the largest bastion is this one by far. And you can see here there is the cages here with the fire in it. There are multiple layers here. And there are also some rare chests here that still just have the default loot. But if we get down to the bottom here, this is the most valuable part of any structure in the entire game of Minecraft, which is right here. You have here a very massive amount of gold. There can be lots and lots here. It can generate even more than you can see here. And there are 1 or 2 loot chests here of the best draw. So if you look in here, there can be some very good stuff like a netherite ingot, tons of nether quartz, some enchanted diamond things here. Just watch out for burning piglin brutes right here, as they do defend this area, but we'll get more into that later. You can see in this chest here, there's literally 2 ancient debris, 1 netherite ingot, diamond boots, nether quartz, all kinds of crazy stuff in 1 chest. So if you can find a whole bunch of these and loot them, you can get yourself some full netherite armor without ever having to go mining at all. I mean, just between these 2, there's literally 2.5 of the netherite ingots, and that's not even counting the additional ancient debris you could find in the standard chests here. There's not usually too many around the corners here, but there can be, like the one right here. But overall, it's definitely worth looking there as well. Also, another very important part of this is there is a magma cube spawner. This is the only magma cube spawner in all of Minecraft. Well, there's different ones in different structures of the same type, but the only place you can find them is in the treasure room bastion. And it does spawn in magma cubes like a normal spawner would. So this is a very important place to get yourself magma cream if you want it very easily and assuredly. Also, if you bring some frogs here in Minecraft 1.19, you have yourself a working frog light farm, which is a very nice thing to have. And there's also a lot of easy to grab gold around this entire bastion, making it overall a very prosperous and nice place to loot. Alright, so now you know what every bastion type is like, you know where some of the treasure is, but how do you actually raid one of these without being instantly killed by the piglins, the hoglins, or even the piglin brutes, which are one of the most dangerous mobs in the game? Well, I'm going to tell you about those right now. The first thing you need to know is that the Piglin brutes, the Piglins, and the Hoglins in these structures are generation only. That means they will generate in the game when you first come here, but they will basically not spawn in again once you kill them. So you could kill this Piglin brute here, and once you've killed it, you won't get any more of those. Same with the Piglins and the Hoglins here. That's really good because once you've cleared this out of the Piglins and the Hoglins, unless the biome can just naturally spawn more of them in, like this one could, then you won't get any more here. So for instance, one of these structures that is fully in, let's say, the warped forest, once you've killed all the bad guys in here, then you can maybe even convert it into another base if you want, because there's going to be no more hostile mobs here, except for maybe magma cubes from the magma cube spawner. Also kind of funny, Hoglins and Piglins that spawn in a structure together do not fight each other for whatever reason. I guess maybe because they're domesticated Hoglins, and so that's something good to note as well, is you cannot have those Hoglins and Piglins fight each other if they both generated in with the Bastion. But for instance, these ones here that just generated in the red forest would still fight the Piglins. Now to deal with Piglin brutes, all you have to do is bring some boats with you. As they come towards you, place down the boat. They will get into the boat. They actually have to if they go over it. And you can just simply capture them like that quite easily. And once you've captured all the Piglin brutes, and be careful that you've captured all the ones in the area, as they're quite dangerous, then you can simply get close to them and just hit them again and again. But be aware, they have a very large amount of attack damage. I think they can almost one-hit kill you. In fact, if we try and get hit once, yeah, literally down to half a heart there. But to kill them, even with the netherite axe here, it takes quite a few hits. So be aware of that, but overall that is how you deal with the Piglin brutes. It also can be a good idea to bring a bow and arrow with you, as you can shoot them rather easily without them being in attack range if you don't happen to have some boats, or if they're not in a place where you can easily place boats down to make them not be able to hit you. Now what about Hoglins? How do you defeat them? Well, a boat will not work to capture them, unfortunately, so what I would suggest is to bring a shield with you. These work rather well at repelling a Hoglin's attacks, just like this. If we hold the shield there, it can hit us, but it won't actually do any damage. So make sure you have your shield there, and also make sure not to fall down any holes there. But overall, you can defend yourself just by holding down right click like this. Just be aware as you're kind of in a bad situation if you stop holding down right click. To actually kill them, what I would suggest is to try and get away from them if you can. And once you're away from them, to use a bow or a crossbow. So you can use it like this, then they can't actually hit you. You can also use a crossbow, it's just a little bit quicker. You can charge it up, so just like this. But again, overall, once they get close, you want to use your shield, or you'll be killed by them just like that. So if you get yourself to a high place somewhere in the Bastion, then you can just simply hit them like this, and you can kill them rather easily just drawing your bow and shooting them like that. You can also try and knock them back, but when you hit them, they really don't knock back that much as they're so big, so trying to, let's say, knock them into lava is not a very good technique with the Hoglins. And their food here is a raw pork chop, not a rotten flesh, so that's a really good thing as well if you're trying to get yourself some food to eat. What about the standard Piglin? How do you have them not attack you? Well, if you wear a golden helmet or any other piece of golden armor, they will think you're another Piglin and they won't attack you. The problem is that the Piglin brute will come and attack you, and once it attacks you, these guys will actually become hostile to you then, so you can't really make yourself an effective defense against these guys by just wearing the golden helmet. So what I would suggest to defeat the Piglins is to simply pillar up 2 blocks, get them angry at you if you want to kill them, and then once you're up here like this, they can't hit you, and you can simply shoot them just like this, which is pretty easy there. Of course, here comes one of the brutes, but again, the problem would be generally with just wearing gold, is the brutes would come, they would hit you, and then these guys would become hostile, and of course from up here, you can use any weapon you want to kill them. A bow would be great, but of course an axe would work as well, or any other PvP weapon that you wish. And speaking of pillaring up, we can even use this against the Hoglin if you want to, but you have to pillar up 3 blocks with the Hoglin, just like this. Then once you're up here, you can shoot it down as well. And you can even try and maybe shoot it off the edge of something, but you're pretty safe from up here as well. This method also does work with the Piglin brutes, so this is a very good way of avoiding damage from these mobs. Now you know how to defeat the 3 types of mobs that generate in the Bastions, but there's some more important info you need to know before you raid one to get the most out of it. The first one is, when you stumble upon a Bastion, you want to get your spawn point set right next to it, as generally you will die several times trying to defeat it. Not always, but sometimes, and it's a good idea to make sure you can grab most of your items back if you die. So what I would suggest suggest is to trade with some piglins, get yourself a respawn anchor with crying obsidian and glowstone, then right click on it a bit, charge it here, and you have a nice place to respawn from when you need to go back here and grab your items if you do die. But if you don't, you can simply break this and then your respawn point can be set wherever you want to after that. Also, while you're at trading with piglins, you can get 3-minute splash potions of fire resistance and 3-minute potions of fire resistance, which are an incredibly useful thing if you, let's say, fall in lava by accident. If I were you, I'd also try and do a bit of piglin bartering to get these as well. If you can't, that's okay, but it's definitely a very important part of surviving, as especially let's say you do a big old fall like this, if you do happen to fall in lava, which I did not fall in right there, then you could potentially be saved. But at least I had my respawn anchor here, and now I'm right back here ready to grab my items. Also, because both lava and fire are such a frequent thing in the Nether, losing the items that you just got out of your loot chest there is quite common. If I were you, I'd place some chests right next to your respawn anchor, or next to a place where you're commonly going in the Bastion, simply place all your loot into, so that if you die, it's not going to matter as much, especially since some of the loot you can find can still burn in lava. Now the netherite ingots and the ancient debris cannot, but let's say you found yourself a really nice enchanted diamond pick, or maybe even just a whole stack of spectral arrows, you want to make sure to store that in a chest so that you do not lose it, and you can bring that loot safely back to your base. Now when you're actually looting this bastion, you may sometimes be surprised by how little loot you can find, but there's a lot more loot in these than you might think. Be aware when you're raiding the bastion, there is hidden gold everywhere. There's even some in the walls of this bastion right here. Also, the ancient piglin builders of the Bastion Remnants hid gold in the walls. They're marked out here by the snout blocks that are actually the chiseled polished blackstone right there. And if you break them, and you kind of break around them, you'll always find some gold right next to those blocks. So if you look around these bastions and you happen to find some of those, you can find very large clusters of gold hidden amongst those. They can even have up to 5 or 6 gold blocks hidden right there. And as a final tip of raiding the bastion, when you're navigating it, if I were you, I would place down blocks just occasionally for where you've been, maybe not even that commonly, because the bastions are very maze-like and a lot of the structures in them seem to repeat again and again, so it might be difficult to know if you've been to an area or not before. But if you place down a block where you've been, you'll know you've been there, and you can be like, oh, I've been to this area, because there's a sort of odd block that stands out from the rest. The other thing is that when you are navigating in the Bastion, make sure to bring some scaffolding, or at very least a whole bunch of extra blocks, because it is very, very common for there to be large areas of the Bastion that there's actually no easy way of getting to. But if you have a lot of building blocks or scaffolding on you, you can easily navigate around the Bastion without any worries. And as an extra little bonus with scaffolding, if we jump off the Bastion here, if you shift and hold right click, you can actually do an MLG with scaffolding just like this. If you saw there, I did not take any fall damage, so that's kind of a fun little extra thing you can do as well if you want to try and avoid fall damage in the Bastion. And again, be very careful no matter what you do for all the amazing amount of dangers that are in this area. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video about the Bastion. Goodbye.